In this video, I'm going to be talking about views in ClickUp. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you probably know that I'm a huge advocate for using the views in ClickUp. And it's one of the most underutilized, powerful features in ClickUp that people just skip it. I don't know why. I talk about it in my How to Organize ClickUp video up here, but I'm going to assume at this point in time that you know that views are important in ClickUp, but you're kind of wondering,
what exactly should my views be?
And in this video, I'm going to give you 4 examples of specific views that I find myself recommending time and time again and show you exactly how to set them up. So there are no more excuses. You have a direct path forward for starting to use views in ClickUp. So let's go into this very first view. I call this view the better than home view because it's very similar to what you're going to find in the home view of ClickUp, which is found over here inside home. But unlike home view, you are able to fully customize this. So here's what's going on. First of all, we have a list view, which you could create from scratch by going up to new and clicking on list view. Once we created the list view, we gave it a name, which we did by clicking on here, clicking on the 3 dots and renaming the view. In this case, I named it better than home. Then what we did is we made sure that everything was grouped by due date. So to do that, we went over to the group by status and changed it to be grouped by due dates instead. So far, it looks pretty good, but there are 2 additional steps we want to do here. The very first thing is to make sure that if there are any subtasks like this one, we want to make sure that those are shown separately. And to make sure that that happens, we want to go up to the very top corner and determine how subtasks are handled. If we have it as collapse all or expand all, subtasks will be hidden inside the task and we will not be able to see them separately. They will not be sorted in the same way that the tasks will. So in this case, we want to make sure our subtasks are shown as separate tasks. So that little subtask I had right there now is moved under the no due date area. This is great, especially if you have things with different dates. So if I assign this to be on Tuesday, all of a sudden the subtask moves up to show when that subtask is specifically due. If you are using subtasks with due dates, definitely make sure you keep that subtask separately option on. Now, the very last setting I have on this view to make it better than home is to filter it by me mode. I can do that either by going to the view itself and making it default people to me mode, or by filtering wherever the assignee is me mode. While this option only filters if the assignee is you, the true default me mode will look at comments or assigned comments as well. So if you're stuck between which one to choose, you probably want to go to having the whole view default to me mode. That means it's only going to be showing you tasks. Well, let me just read it to you. Tasks where you have assigned comments, subtasks, or checklists, that's what's going to be showing up in me mode. So in this way, this looks very similar to home view, but we're able to customize it however we should choose from here. This is one of those views, better than home, that I would recommend you have at the everything level in your ClickUp account, meaning right up here at the very top, that is default for any of your members. Click up here, I would make sure you have that up there at the top. Now, the second view I have here is very similar to the first, but with one key difference. And again, this is illustrating why having our own custom view is better than home. Because inside the home view in ClickUp, where this My Work is, you cannot customize this really at all. You can adjust a few small things, but not really. Like, you're kind of just stuck with the way it is. But in this next view I'm going to show you, we're going to take the view that we just created and customize it to account for one additional variable. In this case, we're going to alter our view to show us only tasks that are ready to do. Otherwise, it's going to be identical to our other one, but we're going to add one filter where dependency does not have waiting on, meaning if a task is waiting on something else, I don't want it to show up regardless of the due date. This is a really great filter, especially for teams that do not use due dates and you're relying entirely on dependencies. You don't want to see tasks that you cannot start yet. So this filter, which again is something we could not do in the home view, this filter can help us do that by creating a ready-to-do view. So far, I've given you 2 list views that will help you focus an individual user onto their structure. The first one we created by scratch, and the second one we created by duplicating the first and adding one additional filter. Both of these views use the list layout. And if you're not familiar, list layout is just one of the many formats that we can have for our views, including calendar, board, all that good stuff. For this next one, we want a workload view. Workload view helps us see the amount of work allocated to each assignee grouped by days. So here we can see Layla has a few tasks scheduled here. This is pretty much just showing you the default workload view, but the only customization I'm going to do here is to filter this view to make sure it only shows the assignees of people on my team. So this is a great view if you're someone that's managing people, right? You're a manager in some way, you're the project manager, and I want to just see of the people on my team, So like the customer support team or the designers, or even individual names I want to select from here. Of those people, what's on their plate for a given period of time overall, or just in a particular location. This view is very, very simple, but this is one great way to estimate how much does each person have on their plate. These estimations are based on whatever unit you decide over here. So you can quantify the amount of work by the number of tasks, by the amount of time you've estimated, by the sprint points you've created, or by a custom field with a number value in it. Any of these things you can use to determine how much volume a task has. In this case, I went with the very simple method of choosing just the number of tasks. As I look forward into future weeks, I can see more and more tasks come in. If I were to click inside here, I can create a new task on the fly. Let's just create a few of these here so that way we can see what it looks like as we start to overflow. When we approach our capacity for a given day, it turns orange, and as we exceed it, which again I'm doing just by adding these dates in here, it shows us how many tasks over our limit we're doing. And again, I'm grouping by task, like number of tasks here. I could also use different methods for estimating the workload if I wanted to show time or whatever else, but for me, just the number of tasks is what I'm looking at. This can be incredibly valuable as you're looking at who has what on their plate, who's overworked, who's underworked. If you're the project manager, this view, which I would call Team's Workload if I were you, this is a view I would always have favorited as a manager to keep an eye on what's on each person's plate. Now for our fourth view, we're going to switch out of Workload view, leave List view behind, and go into a board view over here we're going to use for a team directory. So in this view, what I have going on is I'm using a view to visualize data in a way that's helpful for me to keep track of what time zone each person is in. While the other views are talking about kind of just general ways to organize information, this view is one that's very good specifically for people tasks, or wherever you're using a task to equal a person and you're trying to keep track of certain pieces of information about that person. For example, in this one, I'm looking at time zone. So I have Eastern, I have Mountain, and I'm looking to keep track of which time zone each team member, or maybe in your case, which client is in which time zone. So here we've got Ollie in here. We've got the custom field email showing, which I'm able to show by going into here, custom fields, and in email. I could show the time zone on it, but that's what I have as the group by, so that's a bit unnecessary. So I have group by, custom field, time zone. If I didn't do this, it would just default to a status, which is kind of uninteresting. So we're going to do custom field time zone. And then the additional filters I have in place on this are just a filter to only show people in the team directory. And I might add an additional filter to say only when the time zone is set. So that way people without time zones do not show up on this chart at all. The last little unusual bit here is that we did add images to these, which are cover images, which I've chosen to show over here where it says show images on cards or cover images. If I turn that off, they will hide. If I turn it on, they will show. But how do you know which image it'll show? Well, it shows the one that is pinned. So if you attach things to a file, they automatically show down here at the bottom or over here on the side. If you click on that image and pin it, it will make it the cover image for the task, which is what determines what shows up on these ones here. By adding those images, pinning them, and making sure that cover images are showing over in settings, we're able to make sure that this really looks more like a team directory. While I could also perhaps choose to make a map view of everyone's address to also show me the same information, I find that having the columns showing me the exact time zones from left to right in whatever order I'm looking at, this to me is the most helpful way to visualize it, but of course do whatever works for you. Now I know I said I was only going to do 4 views, but as I was sitting here, I just thought of a 5th one that came up recently in our free Facebook group, which if you haven't seen it, you can join here. It's a free Facebook group to chat about all things ClickUp and Process. And in there, we recently had a conversation about adding dates to calendar view. And you know what? I'm just going to add one more bonus view in here. So let me actually show you inside my own ClickUp account for this one bonus view that was relevant to the conversation recently in the Facebook group. Here we are, and you can see we have a calendar view called the overall content calendar. And I wanted to just show this as one more example view that you might find helpful. This view has no fancy filters, really nothing fancy in settings other than what we have going on here. The first unusual thing is that these tasks are color-coded based on the stage custom field. Our stage custom field is what tells us if something is edited, is it proofread, is it scheduled. That is what's determining the color on these. Then below it, we're showing the approval dropdown. These are 2 different custom fields. So if I go inside this task here, the approval custom field walks through these different stages, and the stage promo walks through the actual stages of creating a YouTube video. These 2 colors are what determine what show up on this calendar view, which gives us an overview of our production process. By something being green and green, I know it's both approved and done on the social media promotion. By seeing something that says needs review and is not yet green. I know where that stands. This kind of lets me know where both the stage and the approval status lie for each piece of content. And this is how we're actually managing our content production here, because we can skim through colors. And if I go in far into the future, you can see we have a lot of placeholder information, but we do not have anything ready this far in advance because we're still kind of, we're a few weeks out, but not a few months out. And so everything shows up as gray here in the future, and progressively the colors get closer and closer to green. And I should note, all of these ones are currently using the due date of the task, but the real special thing about this area is even though right now we have most of these tasks showing up based on due date, you don't have to have that be the case anymore. So in Calendar View, you can choose to have a custom date, another date field of some kind, show up on the calendar as well. So you can see I have 2 typos versions here, but we can have these things show up based on a custom field date, not just the due date, which is a recent change thanks to an update from ClickUp. So if you're someone who has been designing your whole content calendar around due dates, just know that you no longer have to do that. You can have any other date custom fields, such as publish date, being used to guide your calendar. While this is just some formatting applied to a pretty much default view, that is one more view I would add in here as a quick bonus for a view that you might find helpful when you're trying to set up some custom views for your account. If you found this video helpful, please do let me know by leaving a comment below. And if you'd like to see a part 2, of course, leave that as well. I use the part 2 voting that you guys do in the comments to let me know what videos should get a part 2 and what ones are good as is. And of course, if you have your own favorite views that you use all the time, please do outline how exactly you design them, what they are below, because I'd love to have kind of like a views gallery that we can eventually browse through to get inspiration as to what might be some very helpful views for each of us. I think that would help us all figure out what views are going to do the best job of showing us what we care about, depending on which hat we're wearing at a given time. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and until next time, enjoy the process.